to another edition of Shed Talk, my weekly magazine video series looking at the keeping, breeding and showing of cage birds with a particular focus on the exhibition style budgerigar. I've just realised it is really quiet in the shed at the moment. None of the birds are making a single sound, and I'm just wondering whether that's due to all the upset we've had in here over the last week and a bit, where we've been sorting through the hens and sorting through the cockbirds, and they've all been moved around a little bit, so perhaps I've upset them, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure they'll all return to normal really soon. So in this episode, in the last episode, you'll remember we looked at the sorting of the hens, and we decided on our top. I think in the end I ended up with about 22 birds that are now in the main flight behind me. So we nearly reached the 24 hens that we were looking for, but so very close. And I said I was looking for around about 16 cockbirds to go with the 24 hens. I've reached roughly the 16, and we're going to have a look at the cockbirds in this episode. One of the things I found was that it was really difficult. Well, there was lots of manoeuvring birds around, and trying to find cages to put them in. I didn't want to use the freshly cleaned breeding cages as holding cages, so there was a bit of moving around and trying to make room for all of the birds whilst I got the cockbirds out of the main flight and then move the hens back in. Anyway, it was a bit of a nightmare initially, but it's all sorted now. The cockbirds are now in the the cockbirds that I'm keeping to either make the show team or the breeding team for next year's or this year's breeding season, are now in the stock cages, and we will, like I say, we will have a look at those very shortly, at least the top 8 very shortly. All of the hens are now back in the main flight behind me, as I've said. So we're getting a little bit back to normal. Once I've sorted out the cockbirds, once we've looked at them, I may keep a few of those back for the next show, and I'll talk a little bit about the next show in a bit. So that's the main thing for this episode, is we'll look at the cockbirds that I'm keeping, the top 8, talk a little bit about the next show, and if we have time we'll go out and check on those zebra finches to see if any of the eggs were full, or whether we ended up with clear eggs in there and I need to remove the nest boxes. So as always, if you enjoy the show, please do hit a like. Do of course subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. You know, the number of subscribers helps the channel to grow and helps promote the hobby. And of course, please do comment in the comment section of the channel page. I do read all the comments and I do try to answer them all. And thanks to those of you who comment regularly. Right, what we'll do now then is we'll take a look at the cockbirds. that's all of the birds sorted now with the final look at the cockbirds. And you could see when I showed you the cockbirds that I think there's been much less progress in terms of the standard of the cockbirds than there was with the hens. You may remember from the last video, and if you haven't seen that video, there's a link on the top of the screen now. Most of the hens that made the top 8, in fact I think all of them, were this year's bred birds, and there was only a couple of those that wouldn't have made it had it not been for the weighting. Whereas with the cockbirds, when I look at it now, it's about 50-50. Only 50% of the birds, the cockbirds, are currently bred, or this year's birds, and the rest of them are older birds. Now some of that is down to the fact that I bred fewer cockbirds this year than I did hens, but overall I think I'm a bit disappointed with the way some of the cockbirds have turned out, although having said that, they are all still relatively young. So they were, almost all of the cockbirds were bred towards the end of the breeding season, so they're among the youngest birds in the shed. And again, with that said, we know that one of the young hens actually came top of the hens, and she was a late bred hen. So we might get a bit of progression with the cockbirds as they develop, but we'll have to wait and see about that. But we have got a number of birds, or sufficient number of cockbirds to make up a breeding team. If you want to know how I go about scoring the birds and all that, I did show it in the last video, and again the link was just up there. If you clicked on that link, it will take you through to there, and there's a bit more explanation about how I go about sorting my birds out. Anyway, so that's all of, like I say, that's all of the sorting now done. There's a few birds that I've left in the, oh, sorry about that, almost went off screen there, didn't I? There's a few birds that I've left in the stock cage that I'm going to take to the Swindon Gold Show. So I think I've entered 10 birds. I don't think 10 will make it, but I think I've entered 10 birds. Majority of those are young birds, although there's one or two of the adults have made it through as well, and I am thinking about whether I ought to enter a couple of hens as well. But anyway, so that show is coming up. It's a new venue for Swindon 1910, and you may just, I think by the time this video comes out, you may just have time to enter some birds, even if it's just via the phone entry. The details are in the schedule, and what I will do is I'll hopefully get up close of this, and you'll see the who to send entries to, and if you don't have time to enter the show or haven't got any birds but you're in the area, do pop along. As with the Northampton show, this show is an excellent, well run show. I can thoroughly recommend it, and it's a gold show, so a bit bigger than Northampton, and there'll be a few more birds there. I will, as always, try to get some video of some clips of the birds, and as with the Northampton show, I will include those in an update in Shed Talk. So like I say, Swindon show is on, let's have a quick look, 9th of September. So 9th of September, and you can probably see it on the cover. Entries after you've entered, so 12, you pay for the first 12 entries, and then after that entries are free. So enough about the Swindon show. Like I say, the clips from that will be in a future video. So what we'll do now is we'll pop out to the outside flight, and we'll see whether there's been any progress on the young zebras. So here we are then out here in the Fife Finch flight to have a look about the young zebras in there. You may remember about 2 episodes ago we checked the nest boxes. I was about to take the 5 nest boxes down. We checked the nest boxes and lo and behold, one of them had a massive nest built in there and had a good number of eggs in there that were warm, so they were being sat on. At the time I said I didn't think that any of the eggs were going to be viable. I thought they were going to be clear, just because I hadn't seen any mating going on in the flight, and also it was just the way they looked. But who knows, or who knew? So I have been in there again and checked the nest box, and this is what I found. So in the nest box there are young baby zebras in there. I think there are about 3 or 4. They weren't calling. I've not heard them calling when I've been in here either, so they're very, very quiet. Normally, certainly when I bred them the last time, I could hear the noise of the youngsters calling for food almost continuously, but not this time round. However, they are definitely young zebras in the nest box. So that means, good news is, it means that I've got some more young zebras. So for those of you, I think SR was regularly commenting, sorry I don't know your full name, but SR was regularly commenting saying he still had hopes for the zebras. Looks like that we have finally had a bit of success with them for this breeding season. So we're now going to have to just let those go through and wean before we can take the next boxes down, which does mean that I can't. My plan was to move all of the hen canaries into there, which I'm not going to be able to do now, so I'm going to have a think about how I give the hens a little bit more exercise in here. But that's, you know, it's a nice problem to have, isn't it, not being able to use the flight for a little while because we've got young baby birds. So success this year, we've had good success, reasonable success with the budgerigars, good success on our birth breeding season with the Fifes, and so far, touch wood, a bit of success with the zebras. All we've got to hope now is that a few of those do wean or survive to weaning, and we get a few of them on the perch, so we'll just keep an eye on that. So there we are from out here in Finch and Fife flight, baby zebras. Well, some young zebras in the nest box, and possibly we might just get a few more zebras on the perch this breeding season. So some good news to finish on, I suppose. Before I do go though, I just wanted to say, in terms of the work now, I've done the sorting of the birds, so they're still, it enables me to move on to the next phase of work really, which is first of all double checking my records, because as always, you know, with the best will in the world, I suspect most people are like this. I'm sure there are some who are absolutely spot on with their records, but for me, with the best will in the world, there are always occasions where a bird dies and I forget to update my records to show that it has died. So what I do now, with that complete sort out throughout the entire shed, I now know exactly what birds I've got in here, and I can use that to go back through my online record keeping database, and I can remove those from it, or you know, I can put a date for that they died in there, and that will remove them from the database. In terms of showing, they'll still be on the database, but in terms of whether or not they show up when I look for birds to pair up, they should then be removed from there. And I will also do that with the card index system that I've got. So those birds that have died will have the card index will be cut to show that that bird is no longer available. So that's a bit of work that I will do, and then also I will then begin to start looking at pairing up on paper, and we'll sort of talk a little bit about that in a future episode about how I go about pairing up. I've already got some thoughts, and particularly about the 2 outcrossers from Terry Sadler, and which birds I might put with them, because I want those to go into the breeding cage quite early because they're slightly older birds, and they've probably only got another, or if I'm lucky, I might get one season out of them. So that's the next phase that we've got to do. Earlier on in the week as well, I put out a video of part 2 of the Holland Stud talk that was held at Swindon a few months ago now. That won't be shared on all of the various Facebook groups. I only put it out as a midweek special. So if you're not a subscriber, do subscribe and you will get access, or you'll be able to see when I publish the midweek one. So the Holland Stud was published. Like I say, just about all we've got time for. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to hit the like button, do subscribe, but most importantly, do stay safe and enjoy your birds.